Hey guys, so today we'll talk about the famous quadratic formula and more importantly how to prove the solution of the two roots because nobody really ever talks about that. So to get started we set it equal to 0. Then the next step would be to subtract c from both sides and then divide by a. So we just have x squared without any coefficient. So let's do both of those steps in one go. What do we have? We get x squared plus b divided by ax equals minus c over a. Right? Makes sense because we subtract c from both sides, so it disappears here. We have minus c on the other side, and we divide everything by a. So now there's nothing here, b divided by a, and minus c over a. All right, that's a good start. Now, what if I told you a neat little trick called completing the square? So what if I told you that x plus b over 2a squared minus b squared over 4a squared is the same as this over here? Well, let's check to make sure I'm right. Let's do FOIL to figure out what this in the parentheses is. It's x squared plus b over ax plus b squared over 4a squared, but now we have minus b squared over 4a squared. So it cancels out, right? So that means that we can rewrite this as this equation here. So let's do that. We have x plus b over 2a squared minus b squared over 4a squared equals minus c over a. Now, this is pretty simple because now we see that we just have x by itself here, and these are all numbers that we already know, so it's not that difficult. So let's carry over this over here. So we have x plus b over 2a equals b squared over 4a squared minus c over a. Okay, that's pretty good. No, forgot the squared here. But how can we rewrite this so it's with the same denominator? So we would have to multiply this fraction here by 4a. That makes sense, right? Because we already have an a here, and if we multiply by 4a, the top and the bottom, then we can rewrite it with the same denominator. So let's do that. We would have b squared minus 4ac, sounds familiar, doesn't it? Divided by 4a squared. Now, we're almost done. So let's get rid of the square here. So if we take the square root of both sides, we have x plus b over 2a equals plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 4a squared. Now, why do we have the plus or minus here? Well, anytime we have a square and we want to get rid of it, we take the square root. We have to add, it means that it could either be with a positive or a negative sign, right? Because a negative number times a negative number is the positive number. So because it's the second root, we know that there's two solutions. Now, as you can see, we're almost there. All we have to do now is simplify. So we now say that x, 1 and 2, because there's two roots, two solutions, is equal to minus b over 2a, because we subtract the b over 2a from both sides, plus or minus, and this square root, b squared minus 4ac divided by 4a squared. And we can go even further, and we can take the 4a squared out of the root with the same common denominator with the b over 2a. So we can rewrite this as the famous equation that you'll see everywhere. Minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. And that's it, we're done. But now, the major question, why is this important? Why do we need to learn this? Let me just erase the proof now that we have the solution below. Where would this be used? So, the most basic application is the vertical projectile motion. So instead of the x and y that you would see in a graph, let's say that y is equal to height, and the formula for projectile motion is 1/2 velocity times squared, acceleration, 1/2 acceleration times squared, plus initial velocity times time plus initial height. And that's a simple application. So what would this mean? Let's do a real life example. So the height at any time would be, what's Earth acceleration? Minus 9.8. Let's round it up to minus 10. Sorry, mathematicians, you're welcome, engineers. So it would be minus 5t squared. Now let's say that you're throwing something in the air with the speed of 20 meters per second, so plus 20t. And let's say that you're on the third floor, and the third floor is what, maybe 7 meters off the ground, plus 7. So now if you want to know at what point, at what time t, the rock or whatever it is you're throwing, hopefully not your cat, will hit the ground, we would just solve the quadratic equation with this right here. So it would be t12 equals, let's do it. So minus b, it would be minus 20, plus or minus the square root of 20 squared, minus 4ac. Now what is 4ac? A is minus 5, c is 7, and times 4, this whole square root, and we divide all this by 2a, so minus 10. Now, I don't have a calculator to bust out and do this, but as you can see, it's as simple as that. So that was it, guys. That was the simple derivation of the quadratic formula and a basic application. Hope you liked it. Stay tuned and subscribe to our channel.